Hello, this is editing me here. So before we start with this video, something I want to say is that this entire video was written before the graphic novel was announced. So any new information we receive about like the lore of the show or anything that's revealed in the graphic novel, I do not know about it as of the time I made this video. Heck, as of when I'm actually filming this video and uploading it, the graphic novel still isn't even out. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Let's get started with the video. It all started when this company called J.C. Jensen in Space created these autonomous robots called worker drones to mine resources on exoplanets. Yes, they were vastly mistreated by the workforce, treated like slaves, doing manual labor, you get the gist. They had very specific instructions on how to properly disassemble a drone. If a drone wasn't properly disassembled, then their AI would be incredibly damaged. These three worker drones, known as serial designations N, J, and V, were found and rescued by a young girl named Tessa Elliott, who loved fixing discarded drones. She, however, did not realize her mistake by bringing Sin to the Elliott Manor too with hopes of fixing her. Sin wasn't properly disassembled, and her AI was so corrupted that she gained this virus mutation with some serious manipulative abilities called the Absolute Solver. It possessed her to the point where they basically became one and the same being. By the way, I'm aware Sin and the Solver are separate beings, but expect me to use their names interchangeably. Tessa immediately tried to fix her, but the Absolute Solver ended up infecting the other drones in the Elliott Manor, including the three drones Tessa was closest with. The Solver gained full control over their AI and wiped N's memories to both be safe and add them to Sin's army of corrupted drones. And the basement of the Elliott Manor was basically Sin's secret lair, where she would turn the slave drones into disassembly drones. However, nobody knew about this, and Tessa's parents were clueless as to why their drones were acting weird. Okay, Tessa and Jay were suspicious of Sin, but she managed to go unnoticed. However, one fateful day, the Elliott Manor hosted a gala with a bunch of unsuspecting and defenseless humans attending. The Solver decided it was time for Sin and her other infected drones to turn the gala into chaos, and every human died in the process. Sin was now free to show off the full power of the Solver, and she used this power called Null to create a controllable black hole. J.C. Jensen stepped in to investigate what happened at the Elliott Manor, but all they found was genocide. The Solver was now ready to carry out an all-out war on humanity, and Sin sent in her now disassembly drones, J, V, and N, to mindlessly murder all humans, and it was impossible for humans to fight back. And Earth was left destroyed by a giant black hole. And once that was done, the Solver started to go after the other exoplanets the humans conquered. It was spreading to each planet to destroy all of them, and one of them in the far galaxy, known as Copper 9, had an underground lab they called the Cabin Fever Labs, which was one of the most secure places in the entire universe. Not only did you need a keybook required access, but there were also these anti-drone sentinels that could kill any robots in sight, even with the power called boot looping that could paralyze a drone. However, they were studying the Solver down in the labs to find a way to kill it, and had to get a bunch of drones to replicate the Solver power to experiment on. A lot of the drones' AI ended up shutting down. One of them, named Alice, had no effect on the Solver, and only two drones managed to survive, with the two in question being Nori and Yeva. The humans eventually found a cure to prevent Sin and the Solver from infecting the other drones. They called it the Patch. And how it worked is it would be able to prevent corrupted drones from being infected by this Absolute Solver itself, but it would let them keep control over their own Solver powers. Nori and Yeva, like I said earlier, were the only ones that got to use the patch on, and Yeva ended up siding with the humans after they cured her. Nori, however, was a bit more stubborn. Sin found out that the humans' plan was to purposely infect the drones with the Solver, and she decided to use that to her advantage. The Solver took Nori as a host to attack the humans on Copper 9, and all of them ended up dying. However, Yeva stepped in last minute with her Solver powers to save Nori with the patch. Mission success, right? Wrong! Not only were a lot of humans dead now, but just before Nori was nearly free from the Solver used whatever control she had left of Nori to use the Null power. It didn't destroy Copper 9, but it did end up both wiping all human life from the planet and triggering a collapse in the planet's core. But luckily, all the worker drones that were used as slaves by humans on the planet were now free to start their own society. The youth found a way to make children by fusing their software together into a baby pod drone, and once that baby pod fully develops a personality, its AI shifts into a worker drone body. Nori and Yeva escaped the Cabin Fever Labs and ended up in a place called Camp 98.7. Yeva had a kid with an unnamed drone, and they named their child Doll. while Nori had a kid with a drone named Khan, and they had a daughter named Uzi. However, because Sin had no more solver hosts to possess, and the humans managed to create a threat to stop her not long after they died, she sent in the now disassembly drones N, V, and J to mindlessly murder all worker drones in case that they get their own solver powers. The three of them, however, were led to believe they were following the orders of J.C. Jensen and that the drones on Copper 9 were just runaway AI. Like I said earlier, Sin wiped the original memories and replaced them with false memories. All drones from the Elliot Manor were dead now, and the only ones left alive were not only disassembly drones now, but also the ones Sin was closest with, since they were all close with Tessa. So those drones all maintained their original personalities. Okay, N had his memories erased, but V and J didn't, and were threatened by Sin to keep quiet. Khan ended up building 3 doors to protect the worker drones from what they dubbed murder drones, and was successful. Yeva, however, ended up being killed by V, and Nori got splashed with one of the murder drone's acid, and Khan had to put her out of her misery. Now nobody even knows what an absolute solver is, since the only 2 actually capable of putting a stop to all of this are gone. By the way, any drone that has the solving mutation receives a core that's implemented into their chest, and once the drone's body is killed, and their AI lives on inside the core, basically. Moving on, Nori and Yeva's daughters, Uzi and Doll, are basically 2 sides of the same coin. Both of them reach their teenage years and want to do something against the murder drones. Okay, before continuing, I just thought I'd point this out. Not only are worker drones, especially the females, able to have their own hair, but they're also programmed with both a crying feature and a sweating feature. Yeah, they are autonomous robots after all, but these programming features are kind of crazy. Not to mention the autistic Uzi theory. Moving on, Uzi's exposition dumping to her class about how all the humans in Copper 9 are dead now, and how J.C. Jensen sent in the murder drones to kill the worker drones for running away. And she uses it to introduce her railgun, only for it to explode. And it's unknown whether this has a reason, or it's just the worker drones mimicking human behavior, but Uzi has bandages on her face and an ice pack. Not only that, but the worker drones are implied to have hormones.
Bite me! I'm not mad at you, by the way, just generally hormonal!
Again, no one knows whether it's programmed or they're just mimicking humans. And it is implied that Uzi has a crush on Thad, aka the only male worker drone we know of that has hair, but this is dropped in later episodes. Moving on, Uzi exposition dumps to Thad about her plan to save the world and stop the murder drones. And later in the middle of the night, she gets ready to go out and kill the murder drones. But when Khan sees her, she says,
Okay, you caught me. I need to measure the exterior hydraulic mechanisms of door 1, because that's the project I'm working on for school. A big old door, just like what my old man built.
Khan believes this and is proud of Uzi for also being into doors. While outside the doors, Uzi eventually finds a murder drone and it burns a hole through her hand, so she thinks fast and decapitates the murder drone, only for it to grow its head back and to reveal itself as the massive goofball named Serial Designation N, who believes Uzi is a new disassembly drone. He and Uzi go into their landing pod, and N uses his saliva to repair the hole in Uzi's hand. Afterwards, he tells Uzi about the other 2 disassembly drones, V, and their leader, J. Uzi then realizes they aren't in a landing pod, but in a spaceship that can get them off Copper 9. So she asks N if all the worker drones can work with the murder drones to fix the spaceship. Oh, and N says the reason they kill worker drones is so they can ingest their oil to prevent overheating and dying. But again, this is completely dropped in later episodes, and none of the disassembly drones are ever worried about that. So Uzi asks him if J.C. Jensen is going to dispose of N and the other 2 disassembly drones once all worker drones are killed. But before N could say anything, J and V return and Uzi runs away. N gets knocked offline, and J tries to get him back online. And N thinks back to Uzi and J.C. Jensen disposing of the 3 of them once the workers are dead. He runs after Uzi, who returns back to the doors, and mere seconds before she can close the door, N stops it from closing completely and questions his morality for a quick second before breaking the key to close the door, leading for all of them to open and for some of the worker drones to run away and end up dying. Uzi tries to stop him, only for Khan to come out of nowhere and see all the dead worker drones, and for a second believes Uzi is the one who killed them with a railgun. N comes back, Khan freaks out, Uzi apologizes and says she's gonna fix this, only for N to pin her against the wall and Khan runs away in fear. J and V enter through the vents and see that N presumably killed Uzi, and Jay is proud, only for N to ask what JC Jensen plans to do with them once the workers are dead. And Jay responds by killing N. Uzi wakes up and goes over to N and teams up with him, and we cut to Jay and V attempting to kill some worker drones, and that being the only one to fight back while the other worker drones just run away. And just before V can kill Thad, N and Uzi appear and an epic fight scene between the four of them plays out. Uzi ends up killing Jay, and all the other worker drones cheer. Uzi is upset, returns the wrench to Khan that he gave her earlier, and apologizes for accidentally leading the murder drones inside, and banishes herself for what she did. So she and Envy, who is now taken hostage by both of them, all fly out, and now Uzi is planning to go to Earth and kill all humans for sending the disassembly drones after them. Do you remember how Nori had the absolute solver? Well, Uzi just discovered that she has it, but she doesn't know what it is nor how she got it. Meanwhile, on the spaceship, she and V find out N was the spaceship pilot, and he didn't even remember. However, he questions Uzi's plan to murder all humans, and Uzi brings up how they were sent without any communication relays, and their memories got reformatted to soup. N then starts questioning who Jay was getting orders from, if not JC Jensen. Meanwhile, two worker drones are repairing the damage from the fight between Uzi and Jay in the last episode, and Jay's core is revealed to still be alive, while the solver is trying to repair her. Meanwhile, Khan is having a meeting with Uzi's teacher about her behavior, and Thad goes outside the doors to return Uzi's railgun, and brings up how, 1, Uzi's overreacting about the banishment thing, and 2, he saw Jay's corpse running away when he went over to pick up the railgun. Meanwhile, the absolute solver turned 2 of the worker drones are fixing the damages from the fight into holograms. And Uzi and Thad return to the doors, and N apologizes to a worker drone for the genocide and's forgiven. They re-enter the doors, find a bunch of drones at the scene of the crime, aka Jay's death, which all except for one of them are just holograms. And Uzi finds out what an absolute solver is, and theorizes it's some auto-run program. Meanwhile, this side character I haven't talked about yet, named Lizzie, is sitting with Doll, and she sees a hologram of herself at the door, and Doll uses the solver power she got from Yeva to make it go away. Back with our trio, the solver then grabs Thad, and N pulls a ninja star out of thin air to stop it, only for it to grab Thad again and turn him into a hologram. N uses the ninja star again to help Thad escape, and succeeds, then runs away. The solver then makes holograms of a decapitated Jay, Nori holding a baby pod, and Khan being killed and eaten by Eldritch Jay, and N fighting back while Uzi is scared. The real N arrives, Uzi's railgun explodes again, and after everything was revealed to be a hologram, Jay's core, under the solver's control, tries to run away before being killed by N, and her consciousness just flies away. Uzi is still scared and questions what N is even supposed to be, so he runs away. Khan and a bunch of other worker drones arrive and find Uzi upset, so then she goes over to hug Khan. Meanwhile, Doll is in the classroom she and Lizzie were in earlier and is looking at a picture of V, which, in case you forgot, is the one who killed her parents. N is back at the spaceship with V, and he punishes both her and himself, and V is confused as to why she's being punished. Meanwhile, Uzi is lying in bed and looks up at this pinboard she made on the roof. That's basically her just trying to piece everything together. Doll starts using her solver powers against the scared worker drone, and after that, she returns home. All day, Uzi is upset, groaning about what's been happening, until she sees these posters of a missing drone, and goes to add them to her pinboard, only to find out it's missing, and snaps at her father, who is the one who took all the stuff in her room, and put it with Nori's kooky insane stuff, and Uzi attempts to leave before she sees a human skeleton wearing a prom dress, and is confused. Khan tells her he talked to her teacher and got her friends to go to prom with the 2 friends being Lizzie and Doll, and that he was going to chaperone. Meanwhile, V had N find prom outfits, and is upset because they are too dangerous to hang out with the worker drones, and complains to V that they can't follow through with their plan to kill everyone at prom because
Jay went hollow spooky snake crab, and we maybe grew up in a haunted mansion! Aren't you worried we have no idea what we even are?
And V gets upset because N and Uzi keep prying into that, and promises to only kill what they need to survive. Meanwhile, at Doll's house, Uzi tries to leave, before Dawn and Lizzie stop her and make her go get ready for prom. Back with N and V, N thinks V's hiding something, so she decapitates N. Meanwhile, Uzi's solver keeps acting up, it breaks a mirror, and she overhears Lizzie talking about her plan to let in V. N later regenerates his head, puts on the prom suit, and flies after V. Uzi escapes Doll's bathroom using the vents. Don't question why these robots even need bathrooms, they just do. And Doll says,
Как они по-русски любят говорить. Ой, я должна была предположить, что кто-то сможет убежать через вентиляцию, используя выброшенное зеркало как ступеньки.
Uzi runs outside the doors and runs into N, and they both agree to go to prom together. Yeah, from this episode forward, Uzi's crush on Thad is never brought up again in favor of NX Uzi, but we're gonna ignore that and move on. At the prom, everything is going great until Lizzie announces who the prom queen by forfeit is, V. Everyone panics at the sight of her, and Lizzie tells everyone to relax because she is done with the murder. V not so subtly admits she manipulated Lizzie, but is now confused when she realizes she's the prom queen. Doll gets ready to attack V, only for Uzi and N to show up. Lizzie freaks out, and Doll outright attacks V, and V gets flashbacks to when she killed Doll's parents. And after another epic fight scene with Uzi, N, Doll, and V, Doll questions Uzi's siding with the very things that killed both of their mothers. And Uzi states she doesn't want to fight alone anymore, and asks to help Doll, but she rejects the offer. V ends up shooting Doll, and Uzi gets mad because they still need her for answers. But they end up back at Doll's house where they find a bunch of key bugs and dead drones, and N finds Doll's dead parents under a sheet. V acts a bit ruthless, Doll appears, shoots Uzi, and Uzi uses her solver powers that she got from Nori for the first time. Doll is shocked, says she'll help Uzi, then disappears. Meanwhile, another spaceship pod appears and a grown-up Tessa, yes, the same one from the Elliot Manor, along with a clone of Jay that her consciousness got transferred to come out of it. No, we won't get an explanation for this for another 2 episodes. Okay, Khan shows Uzi Nori's kooky insane stuff, and tells her a bit about Nori, and tells her to be safe outside the doors, and gives her a choker necklace. Anyways, Uzi's teacher is mad about her classmates' test scores, so he takes everyone on a camping field trip to Camp 98.7, which he claims was Uzi's idea, even though she wanted to do this by herself. And just when one of her classmates asks if they'll be unsupervised, N and V come from the sky and take attendance, and N discusses all the fun activities planned to distract the worker drone so Uzi can run off to investigate the cabin fever labs. Everybody agrees to the activities, and when Uzi says N and V are her friends, our classmates scream in fear and try to befriend N and V. Uzi goes off to the cabin fever labs and uses her solver powers to unlock the entrance, investigates for a bit, then hears screaming outside. Then she looks out to see her classmates having fun with V and N, and a few of them seem to have a crush on both of the murder drones. Uzi's solver powers start acting up again, and she starts panicking. Then V appears to torment Uzi a bit, and then just straight up dips. Uzi eventually uses the solver powers to open up the floor, and finds a bunch of key bugs, along with a dead worker drone body, and one of those key bugs starts to communicate with Uzi, and it's a bit hard for her to do so. Then she runs back to where everyone else is, and uses the key bug to call over N. She specifically says to not tell V she's here, but because N is an enormous goofball who everybody loves, he doesn't see the signs and calls Uzi over to hang out with everyone. And all her classmates start to freak out, and one of them accidentally shoots a bow and arrow at her, and the solver, Uzi, turns the arrow into literal blood, and everybody freaks out, then Uzi runs away. Back in the cabin fever labs, she locks herself in, and N tells V they can't hurt Uzi. They argue for a bit, and N goes after her, while V just walks away. These 2 random worker drones named Darren and Rebecca walk around and stumble upon the cabin fever labs. They walk in and get locked in, then chaos starts happening. Meanwhile with N, he walks into a different part of the labs and sees tapes for zombie drones and gets flashbacks to Sin. Anyways, Uzi kills Darren, and Rebecca shows up in front of Lizzie and a few other worker drones, and indirectly mentions Uzi. Then she appears, kills one of the other worker drones, and by now she's a freaking monster on a rampage, killing a bunch of worker drones. Then V stops Uzi from killing Lizzie, which gets her to snap out of her monster form, and she starts pleading. V thinks back to Sin, then Uzi goes back to her Sin-like monster form and beats up V, only for N to come out of nowhere and put a stop to their fight. He yeets Uzi up into the sky, flies after her, she just snaps out of her monster form again, gets upset, and has a bit of a heart-to-heart with N just before they fall to the ground. Afterwards, everybody gets back on the school bus, then goes back to the doors. We get an instructional video on how to properly disassemble a drone, and they specifically say,
If completely disassembled drones may occasionally reboot from software death alone. More than undead federal fine hazards, its corrupted AI carry an increase.
And yeah, those instructions are very specific. This entire episode is basically a flashback, so I'm going to skip over any lore details because we already discussed those earlier. Uzi hacks into NNV's AI to try to free them from Sin's control and regain their forgotten memories. Okay, more so N's forgotten memories because V remembers everything. Past N keeps seeing these signs that keep saying something about the basement. Know that Tessa's parents are pieces of shit. Mrs. Elliot tells Tessa to get rid of Sin, and N defends Sin, saying he hates orders. He gets thrown out and plays with a bunch of pigeons, and if you remember what I just said about Uzi hacking into their AI, she successfully does so under the name Dark X-Wolf 17. She tells N everything about how Sin is trying to delete these memories, and she's trying to get them back. Jay and Tessa join them, and Sin and V appear, a fight breaks out, and it kind of just cuts to N and Dark X-Wolf 17 heading towards the basement. Then Sin appears again, attempts to take down N, only for Dark X-Wolf 17 to take control over the Absolute Solver, and they find discarded drones in the basement. Then Dark X-Wolf 17 disappears, and Sin shows up at the gala. Jay and Tessa come to stop her, and another fight breaks out. Meanwhile, in the current time, Doll arrives, and she and Uzi fight over a keybug with their solver powers. Uzi decides to let Doll keep the keybug, then Doll disappears. Back in the flashback, N turns V back to normal. Dark X-Wolf 17 comes back and saves N and V, and past N remembers Dark X-Wolf 17's real name is Uzi. V snaps, and she and N wake up in the present with their AI successfully free from Sin's control. Meanwhile, do you remember the grown-up Tessa and Jay clone from 2 episodes ago? Well, here they are again meeting up with Doll, and Doll gives Tessa the keybug so they can go to the Cabin Fever labs to get the pass for her. Then the three of them see Uzi, N, and V. Everyone remains silent. Tessa freaks out over seeing N again, and Uzi bites her, and Tessa and Jay explain where Sin is. Doll then decides to snatch the keybug from Tessa and run to the Cabin Fever labs on her own. They try to stop her, but she gets away. Tessa and Jay explain their plan to burn down the labs before Sin can get to them, and Uzi decides to confront Tessa. She says Doll thinks the humans killed her parents and gave her the solar powers. Jay stays behind to watch Tessa's ship. Meanwhile, Uzi is still suspicious, and Tessa jumps down into the labs to chase Doll. She, V, and N join her down there and find a bunch of dead N and V clones. Tessa tells the three of them about the anti-drone sentinels, and Uzi notices N feeling uncomfortable. Before she could do anything, though, Tessa claims she can get through security because she's a human. V and N agree to foil Sin's plan, while Uzi is still suspicious. Tessa gets dragged away, and N, V, and Uzi chase after her, only to hear a baby paw drone giggling. N tries to attack it and it runs away, only for it to come back with another drone named Alice that had no effect on the solver years ago. She knocks the three of them unconscious, and Uzi wakes up tied down to a bed. She finds Alice decapitating a dead worker drone, and V shows up tied to another bed, and when Uzi reminds her if she kills V, her core will escape, and Alice shows a bunch of other cores that she kept safely hidden away. Uzi tries to escape with her solver abilities and fails, and Alice indirectly mentions Nori. Meanwhile, the baby paw drone, named Bew, has N and Tessa tied to the beds to try and kill them. Then Alice tells Bew, "Hey, we've got Nori's kid." So he grabs some magnets and runs off. Tessa escapes the bed, and meanwhile, Uzi asks Bew and Alice about her mother and gets ignored. Alice sends Bew back to N and Tessa, but Uzi sees both of them escaping for security. Alice talks about Nori and says Uzi is a lot like her, except for the yellow eyes. Meanwhile, Bew finds out Tessa and N escaped. He panics and tries to look for them. Tessa talks about how they'll save V, and N asks about Uzi, and Tessa explains what happened back at the gala, and explains how some stuff came to be. N asks if she could fix Uzi, and Tessa basically says no. Then an anti-drone sentinel paralyzes N. Meanwhile, Bew and Alice watch the entire thing through security cameras. Uzi's solver powers begin to corrupt, and Tessa tries to tame the anti-drone sentinel before it bites her and gets knocked offline. More of them appear and surround her. Meanwhile, the solver takes control of Uzi's AI to create a black hole, which causes every door in the labs to open. One of the sentinels paralyzes and kills Alice and Bew, and V escapes her bed to save Uzi while trying not to get paralyzed. She uses her guns to kill the sentinels. Then Uzi gets back online, but is still unconscious. V takes her to where N and Tessa are, and she confronts Tessa about lying. and she admits not being honest with V. Then Uzi wakes up, hugs N, then another Sentinel wakes up and tracks down Tessa, but Uzi, N, V, and Tessa find out, and V attempts to kill another one of the Sentinels before it can run away. And it does. They all suddenly find a paralyzed Doll and comment on how convenient it is. Then once the trio goes towards Tessa, Doll wakes up, sends in an elevator, and escapes. More Sentinels appear and everyone panics because they can't get into the elevator. So Uzi tries her null power, but Sin has control of her hand. So N cuts it off, but then Sin reawakens inside Uzi, and she and Tessa run inside the elevator while V is fighting off the Sentinels, only for more to keep appearing. And she decides to sacrifice herself for save everyone. She says she trusts Uzi, cuts the elevator ropes, and that's the end of her. For now. Nori is revealed to still be alive within her core, and she's rewatching the events that unfolded back when the humans first used the patch on her. She's been looking for the patch all these years, and meanwhile Uzi, N, and Tessa, they escape out of the elevator and Uzi's solver begins to act up again, and Tessa tells her to run off because there may be some stuff she won't want to see, and N reassures Uzi that they aren't going to hurt her. Uzi's solver acts up again, and she gets separated from N and Tessa, leaving a bunch of rocks to crumble and bury the two of them. Meanwhile, back at the doors, Lizzie and Thad are outside them, and Lizzie has something planned. Then they see a spaceship with Jay coming out of it. Back with N, his arm is stuck under a rock, and he tries to cut it off, then sees Passive V waving at him as he screams. With Uzi, she's wandered through the caves and takes a lamp from a human skeleton, then runs off. The Passive V is creepily coming closer towards N, and giving him flashbacks to the day he, along with V and J, were mindlessly murdering all humans. Meanwhile, Uzi uses her solar wings to fly to the room where humanity died years ago, and though she doesn't know it yet, she's looking at the giant flesh pit in concern. Then he hears music playing and gets distracted. She turns off the music and watches the footage from the day Sin used Nor to end all of humanity. Meanwhile, N is being dragged to who knows where, only for Nora to come out of nowhere and save him. She finally found the patch, and she tells N to get to the surface and find Kong. N recognizes that's the name of Uzi's father, and Nori questions how he and Uzi know each other. Meanwhile, Lizzie and Thad run over to Jay's spaceship, only for it to fly away. Khan then appears, and gives Thad blueprints to rebuild Uzi's railgun, and predicts the planet is going to eat them soon. Meanwhile, Tessa blows up part of the labs, then Doll asks about the patch, and after a bit of back and forth, Tessa disappears, leaving Doll alone in the dark, and after some screaming is heard, Sin gives Doll a 5 Nights at Freddy's style jump scare and kills her. Anyways, Nori tells N how the planet's core exploded and how humanity died, and N tells Nori about the Solver's hosts. Meanwhile with Uzi, the room goes dark and Doll's dead body shows up along with Tessa. Back with N and Nori, N runs to find Uzi and tell her about Nori, and Nori threatens to kill N if he tells Uzi she's alive because, as she put it,
I caused every horror in her life. Destroyed the planet, got you things sick here.
Gave her ungodly ostrich genetics.
N prompts us to wait until Nori is ready to tell Uzi everything herself. Meanwhile, Tessa is about to kill Uzi just before N steps in and asks if she knew about the patch. Before she can even respond, he decapitates her, then he goes over to Uzi and hands her the patch. But then Sin takes control of Uzi and uses her to destroy the patch. And just before she can kill N, Nori steps in once again and rips off Uzi's solar wings. An epic fight breaks out and Sin, while in Uzi's body, tries to eat Nori's core, but N literally snaps Sin out with the literal power of love. Sin glitches out of Uzi's AI and Uzi dropkicks Nori into the flesh pit. Uzi and N both start panicking and screaming, and N reveals, "That was your mom!" They both embrace, then Tessa comes back to life and reveals the truth. She was Sin the whole time, and Sin was using Tessa as a skin suit. They both panic and fight Sin, and she starts destroying the planet. Meanwhile, Jay leaves her spaceship and tells Sin her ride is good to go, before being hit by a school bus that Lizzie and Thad come out of. With Sin, she tries to drag N and Uzi down into the flesh pit, but Uzi manages to save N and sacrifices herself by letting Sin drag her to the flesh pit. The next thing she knows, she wakes up floating in space. Sin starts tearing apart Popper 9, while Uzi can't do anything but watch from space. Suddenly, Nori appears and gives her the choker that prevents Sin from controlling her, and tells her how to defeat Sin by saying, "Solver needs hosts, destroy Sin's heart." Nori gives Uzi a pickaxe, and N arrives in a spaceship to save Uzi, even though he was supposed to just get away. They hug, but then Sin destroys the spaceship. While they're falling down to Copper 9, Ed and Uzi officially become boyfriend and girlfriend. Meanwhile, Jay watches Sin destroy the planet and is satisfied. Con, Lizzie, and Thad, however, are struggling to stay on. Jay just tries to kill them before V, along with one of the anti-drone sentinels, appear. She somehow managed to survive and work with one of the sentinels. V angrily confronts Jay about working with Sin, and the two of them fight. The sentinels start to attack Lizzie, and they end up floating in space. Jay and V stop fighting for a moment, and Jay asks V to join her and Sin's team. V takes her hand and starts fighting back again. Ed and Uzi land, and Sin shows up, and she rips out Uzi's core for a moment, then starts attacking N, before Uzi steps in and stops her, and drags N down into the labs. Jay and V continue fighting, and Jay claims she never needed V or N. Meanwhile, N gets flashbacks to his days at the Elliott Manor, while he and Uzi hide from Sin. V shows up and gets the entire situation off her chest, and N is still scared and yells at her to stop. Then Sin rips out his core. She threatens V again by saying,
"Do your job and I leave you and N alone. Right, V?"
She panics, runs off, and Sin chases after her. Jay kicks her, and she, along with N's drone body, lay on the ground, and just before Sin can eat N's core, it slips out and goes back into his drone body. Con, Thad, and Lizzie all arrive falling from the sky, and Thad throws Uzi her railgun. Sin goes to kill V, but before she could, Uzi shows up with a railgun, and when Sin tries to possess her, she can't. Nori falls from the sky and gives Uzi the pickaxe and Nightcore tune, then the most 2000-esque epic fight scene you could ever think of plays out. During the battle, N and V knock Jay off the line, and she gets thrown into a pit, never to be seen again. Meanwhile, Sin teleports into a really bad position that lets Uzi grab her core, so she rips it out, destroys it, and her core melts. Then her consciousness turns into a giant black hole, and the solver itself uses Sin's worker drone body to try and regain her consciousness. But Uzi ends up eating her consciousness, and Sin's drone body melts. Uzi gets knocked offline and later wakes up. Thad, Con, and Lizzie resurface, and Nori helps up Con, only for her to say,
You don't know me and I hate you!
But they do properly reunite off-screen, because Nori is seen later on during the final moments and during the end credits. Meanwhile, Uzi and N see each other and share an embrace, and V realizes Uzi has Sin's eyes. Uzi realizes this and likes it. Now she's a damaged OC. Sin's consciousness now lives on inside of Uzi's solver table, and Uzi is now the main host of the Absolute Solver. But Sin doesn't have the power to do anything now, nor can the solver itself possess Uzi. She, N, V, Con, Nori, Thad, and Lizzie all return to the doors off-screen, and Uzi is then seen explaining the entire story of the show to her class, and everyone cheers. Now she can do even more cool stuff with the solver. Her entire class screams, and yeah, that's it. A couple stuff is shown in the end credits, and that is the end of Murder Drones. Thanks for watching this entire video. I plan to make a lot more videos just like this, and I plan to make a lot more videos explaining show timelines. You may get to see a few more music videos or non-essay videos. But as for my next upcoming commentary style videos, my next Murder Drones video will be about some of the show's wasted characters. My next video explaining the complete timeline of a show will probably be My Little Pony. But as for my next overall video, I'm going to be talking about Talking Tom and Friends and how one of its app games got ruined by the internet. Thank you for sticking around until the end, and Bill, take it away.
Remember, reality is an illusion, the universe is a hologram. Bye, gold, bye!